Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneurs Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs or at Justin Bizzarro, as well as at Gorilla Brave. That is the food and beverage community for everyone out there. That's where spirituality meets business. That's where all the basics, all the reminders, all the things that everyone's been asking about. That's where I've put it. Education, stuff extrapolated from the episodes from the podcast, my 28 years of experience in food service and beverage, everything from production and massive contracts to restaurants and food trucks. I've put it all in there. Consumer packaged goods. It'll all keep going in there. That'll help the entrepreneurs trying to get started give a basis of all the information they need to know while starting their businesses. So that is at Gorilla Brave. There also will be networking events and summits available for everyone. You can find that at gorillabrave.love. So thank you, everyone. I have a very special guest with us today. I have Kevin Cooper from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Hey, I'm going good. I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Kevin, you're incredible. We've been talking a lot about Renaissance men on this podcast are well-rounded humans that really go after educating themselves and diversifying their lives. I think you're an example of this. I've spent some time paying attention and just looking as we signed up, communicated and signed up for the podcast, like all of that stuff. I think it's phenomenal. You balance fitness, faith, and business all together so well. I want to just dive into your story. The microphone is yours. And so we can go all the way down to baby Kevin to where you are now. And let's sort of just talk about that this is your show. So I'm going to give you the mic. Take as long as you want. Tell your story.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. So my name is Kevin Cooper. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Grew up in North Philly, in the poor area of Philadelphia. And before I continue to get into my story, I like to tell people all the time, man, that it's not always about where you're from. It's always about where you're going and where you can go, right? So I grew up in North Philadelphia, went to the Philadelphia public school system, joined the Army, did 13 years in the military, 7 active duty, six in the National Guard, and then I transitioned into the food service and got my culinary degree, was valedictorian of my class, started a catering company, got on the Food Network, won a few shows on the Food Network, and now I have a catering company, a cookbook author, I have a wine brand, and I'm the owner of Chicken Guy. I'm a franchisee of Chicken Guy, which is a Guy Fieri and Robert Earl brand in the mall at King of Prussia Mall. So that was just like a quick summary of my life transitioning from, growing up in the hood up until today.
Let's talk about military. Let's talk about that transition. That's seeking discipline out of chaos in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that venture, the lessons learned there, the stacking of skills that will prepare you for now.
Yeah, so initially I joined the military just for the education, right? I couldn't afford education. I couldn't afford college education. So I joined the military for education. But what I realized is that I always wanted to be in the food industry. And what the military did for me was it gave me the discipline and the confidence to finally go out and do what I love. You know what I mean? So the military was another step for me to kind of push out into this field and to be successful in this field. And I have learned so much with great leadership, in the military that kind of helped me where I am today.
Yeah, talk to me about that leadership part, because I think it's important. What did you have mentors or anyone that particularly helped you, or any particular area that you gained leadership in? Because I can tell you're leading in your field and in the multiple businesses you're building. So you're stacking those skills here too, but I believe it probably starts here.
Yeah. So when my first duty station, I was 82nd Airborne in North Carolina. It was Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But my first sergeant, I was in logistics. I wasn't even in food. I was in transportation. So he pulled me off of the transportation line and he brought me into the office where I learned like the back of the house Army, like all things back of the house within the Army. And he was sending me to all of these military schools. And I went to him. I went in parade rests, like a custom we have to do when we're talking to a higher up. And I said, First Sergeant, with all due respect, I do not want to go to these schools. I just don't want to do it. And he said, You know what, Cooper, you are so ungrateful. Get down, do all these push-ups. He gave me the discipline that I needed. But what I realize now is sometimes we just have to do those things that we don't want to do in order to be successful in life, right? So now I see what he was doing when he was sending me to these things, to these schools that I didn't want to go to, right? It was teaching me how to just push through, to just make myself more better, to make my resume more like deeper, and and to build even more character within myself. And that's one of the most profound memories that I have within my military career.
It's amazing. The transition into the food service side of things, how do you begin? Do you seek the education first? Do you seek the experience first? Do you seek both first? Talk to me about how you now know you that the military is a stepping stone. You want to take a step in the next direction. What does that look
Well,
like?
yeah, well, I've been cooking since I was 9 years old, right? I've always wanted to be in the food service industry, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. I was so afraid of joining this industry, right? So I had the opportunity to actually take culinary courses when I was a teenager. And when I stepped into the kitchen and I saw all of the big equipment, I was intimidated by it. And I made an excuse like, oh, I don't want to learn how to cook eggs, when in fact, I was intimidated by the equipment. But the crazy thing about that is I have worked in the food service. Like my first job was at a pizza shop when I was doing wings, like making wings all the time. And then, I worked in fast food, and I was already in the industry, but it's different when you're like in like a pizza store kitchen or a fast food kitchen versus like a commercial kitchen, right? You get the opportunity to step into a commercial kitchen and you see all this big shiny stainless steel equipment and you're like, hold up. Well, this was me. Hold up. I don't know if I can do this, right? So I was intimidated. So I would just cook and cook and cook and learn like the different cultures of food, hang around people from many different cultures, Spanish culture, Caribbean culture, learn how to cook their food. I was cooking many different cuisines at 19 years old in my mom's home, and cooking for my friends, joined the military, traveled the world, was learning, cuisines from where I was in my travels, and cooking for my battle buddies, on base. And then it just finally hit me. Like, bro, this is what you love, right? You had to go through all of these steps to get you to this point, and now it's time for you to dive head first into the industry, and that's what I did.
Awesome. And I love this. Where does fitness start to play a role in your life amongst all of this? The dedication, the discipline, the body as your temple. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's anchor that before we get into the businesses that you've created.
Yeah, so like obviously being in the military, 82nd Airborne, we ran 8 miles a day, and then after that, after my duty day, I would go to the gym and I would lift weights, and I always been kind of muscular, but I remember when I was a kid, the little action figures that we used to get, that our parents used to get us when we were children. I used to look at this action figure. I used to be like, I want to be like this guy. Like, I want to be like the action figure, right? So it's essentially like, I want to be my own Superman, right? Not for nobody else, right? But for myself. So when I realized that I was capable of building my body, and that it does take discipline, it does take hard work, and I will give kudos to the military for helping me build that discipline in that area as well. It just makes it much more easier to kind of just stick to the script. You know what I mean? And also, you want to be able to live a long life doing what you love to do, right? And I think taking care of yourself with fitness, and not only just to look good, but also to be good, like from within, so that you can move forward and do whatever you need to do as the years go on.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the journey now. You're sort of stacking skills, you're stacking health, you're stacking discipline in terms of fitness, leadership. You're now getting the cooking skills. Like, you've got all these things going. You go into culinary school. What was that like? What was the difference between military life and culinary school?
It was different. It was very much different. For me, it was a culture shock because I was so used to discipline and things being just right dressed. But the culinary field is kind of similar to to the military because of the discipline you have to have when you're on the line, when you're in the kitchen. However, when you're transitioning from being a soldier into the civilian world, you start to work with people who doesn't quite have the same amount of discipline you have, and that's not a bad thing, right? Because it was easy for me to understand because I remember I used to be a civilian at one time, right? So this is not about judging. This is just about transitioning, right? So it was kind of hard for me to extend that grace in that moment until I realized, yo, you used to be this guy. So what can you do, right? You can help these people by just showing up and showing them what they can do to be successful in the industry. So culinary school was amazing for me. And I went because I wanted to get a degree, right? I don't feel like you have to get a degree to be successful in this industry, but it was something that I felt like I needed to do for myself. And when I walked into those doors, I automatically felt like I know everything. Like I worked at a few restaurants. Even when I was active duty, I worked at a restaurant. My commander had to sign off on some paperwork for me to work in a restaurant. So by the time I went to culinary school, in my mind, I'm like, I know this, I'm gonna be great at this. But it humbled me as well. And it taught me a lot of things that I did not know, right? And it was very interesting for me. And that's what made me push to actually become the head of my class during graduation.
There we go. Talk to me about ambition, work ethic, discipline. I mean, we talked about the military bringing it out of you, but there is the hunger there that's necessary to even receive the information,
Right, right,
the
right.
openness. So where does that come from? What is it that it's still there now, but we're talking about not only hurdles, we're talking about shifts in life which aren't easy, on top of climbing out of a hard situation, on top of then culinary school shock. I understand you come from an extremely disciplined world, and then you go into a world that's not so disciplined, and the individuals don't have the same way. But I agree with you. The importance is showing up
Right,
every
right.
day, just showing up and leading by example, and that's the only way that I know that works. And then eventually over time it becomes contagious, and then
Right.
from there there's a little bit of ability to start to have conversations, and you
Yeah,
go on.
yeah. So first and foremost, with all those transitions, like I cannot forget to say and give kudos to God, right? We got to make sure we got to put God in this, right? Because some of the things that we think we can't handle, we actually can, right? Because we get our strength from the Lord. That's what I believe in, right? But more importantly is like you have to already unequivocally know that you are this great person, right? And that you're going to show up and you're going to show out, right? I don't necessarily think that you should go into a situation thinking that you are going like for me, I didn't go into culinary school saying to myself, I'm going to be the valedictorian, I'm going to be the top of my class, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I think we should not have those kind of goals. I think when we show up to something, we should automatically say, I'm going to show up the best possible way that I can, right? I'm going to try to be the best person that I can be so that I can do whatever it is that God has for me to do. And then we will see what happens in the midst of that, right? So it's just one of those things where you just got to be open and willing to just being a great person, man, and just allow life to kind of award you. And that's basically what I did.
I love it. How do you're leading, you're sort of, this is you pedaling, God steering, right? That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about here. You're pedaling the bike, he's steering. You go through culinary school. What happens afterwards? Where do you go from there? Where does life lead you from that point? Because now you have the confidence, you have the discipline, you have the obedience, you have the leadership. Where does it take you from there?
Yeah, so while I was still in culinary school, obviously I had to do a lot of stages and internships as well. Like culinary school for me was was great for me and for the students who attended because we sat down and we did classroom work. We learned different techniques and things of that nature. But when we did our night labs, our school transitioned into a restaurant, right? So we were able to work on a line. right? Work on the line, actually getting orders out. It was just as if you were in a restaurant. And also, as when you finish that portion of your course, you transition into front of the house to actually run the front of the restaurant as well, right? So it was this whole big restaurant thing going on along with the education. But while I was still in culinary school, I I started a catering company called Suckling Imagination Catering, right? And it was so amazing. I got all the catering equipment, got all my paperwork in line, off premise catering, and I start like doing like pop ups and like showcasing my talent and skills within the city of Philadelphia. And then in a few short months, maybe 6, 7 months later, I was invited to go on the Food Network. Right. So, but initially, I signed up for Beat Bobby Flay, and let me know if I'm moving too fast. Right.
No,
But
no, I'm
initially,
loving it. Let's do this. I love this part. Yeah, let's go on. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, so 7 months after me opening starting my catering company, signed up for Beat Bobby Flay, right? And I'm like, okay, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So the producers, they called me, they said, hey, listen, we know that you're new in your business. We see your food. We know that you can cook, but you might be biting off a little bit more than you can chew at this moment trying to apply for Beat Bobby Flay. However, we do have a show for you called Cooks versus Cons, and we want to know if you would like to apply for it. And I was like, absolutely, absolutely, yes, right? So I always wanted to do TV. I always wanted to do radio, and
I
not
love
just
it.
for the sake of saying
Yeah.
I'm on TV or I'm on radio, but also just so you can show people that you can be amazing, right? You can be great in this industry. You can be from the hood and become something bigger than you ever can imagine yourself becoming. So I had a few interviews with the producers, Skype interviews. They wanted to see my knife skills. They wanted me to prepare a dish, and they absolutely loved it. And I got chosen for the show. And I went on the show, and I almost went home on the first round. And on the second round, I came back and I won. So it's one of those things. It's about
Yeah.
really inspiring. Like, and even when I walked into the set, the producers, they were saying the dish that you prepared for us on Skype, we all ordered because I made like a vermicelli noodle dish, a curry vermicelli noodle dish. They said you made us all order noodle like Asian noodle pasta for our lunch. That's how good that dish is. So it's all about just inspiring, right? And when you see me in person, like for people who don't know me at all, they will never correlate like food with me. They will always assume that I'm like a cop or even a soldier, right? But they would never assume that I'm a great cook. So when I go on these shows and I'm really like cooking my behind off, it's just showing people that you also cannot judge a book by its cover. And I love that for me. I love that God has made me like this unique vessel, right? That you're not like what you see is not what you're going to get. And I love that about me. I love that. And it wasn't always like that. I used to be upset about that, right? But when you are separated and when you are made unique, that's a great thing. So
Yeah, talk to me about those who invested in you while from the culinary perspective. We talked a lot about the military, but from a culinary perspective, mentors, chefs, maybe business people that sort of invested in you with their time or their energy at this point in time.
yeah, so one thing that I will say is that Chef Joe DiGeronimo. He was the president of the J&A Institute of Culinary Arts. Amazing guy. He's been in the industry for many, 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 many years. And he wasn't like this big old fancy guy who was out there on the tabloids, but his work is very effective because he has changed the lives of many people. You know what I mean? So he helped me to become a chef. He showed me how to transition into that cook into a chef, right? And it's one of those things where I have worked in a few different places in a few different restaurants, but Chef Joe has really given me the tools to kind of step out and say, listen, that I can do this. And also with the military, even though I didn't do food service in the military, just my mentors in the military helped me transition as well. But one of the things that I can say that really helped me is this restaurant, Aki Meadow. It's in a Ritz Carlton, right? It's in a Ritz Carlton. When I started there, right? I was there for that opening. I was one of the line cooks for that opening, right? And one thing that I will say is that I was so inspired at that place that I could not stay. That's how inspired that I was, right? And it kind of was like, I know that's like an oxymoron. Why, if you was inspired, why did you leave? Those guys who worked there, they were like, it was me and this other guy. I'm just using this as an example. It was me and this other guy. We were on like the wood fire grill, right? He will run to go get the steaks to put them on a grill. Like he like it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what was going on. He was going to make sure that he cooked that dish before I got to it. Right. So me looking at that, I'm like, listen, I don't want to fight for a steak dish, right? If like we're supposed to be working together, but when you think about it,
Yeah.
there's somebody out here that's going to work harder than you. There's somebody out here that's going to push harder than you, right? So you have to push, you have to go, because even though your life is your life, if you allow somebody to come into your life and walk over you and beat you in your own game, then that's your fault. So I think a lot of the experiences, yes, we have mentors and people that we can look up to, but a lot of the things that build us is the actual experiences that we are in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to come from a leader. I think the first thing we look at is, oh, that's the chef, that's the boss, that's the owner. I want to look up to him. But what about the people around you? You can't forget about them, right? Because they help you build up your resume as well. They help you build up your repertoire as well, right? So don't forget about the small things. You got to find blessings in the small things, not taking it away from the big things, but find blessings in the small things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. The way I look at it is they're seeds planted in us. We have to grow them. We have to seek water. We have to seek fertilizer. They've been given to us. God planted it in us, and then we have to grow them. There's also things that, that take more effort. There's things that certainly growing them takes 7 years of watering before you even get an inkling of a sprout. And I think
Right.
that's what we're talking about here. Some things take longer. There's skills gained along the way, but there's a lot of stacking of things. And I just want to talk about this. It's not only in the individual, it's in the generation. And this is a good time to anchor this sort of leadership concept or entrepreneur concept or life concept, however we want to look at it, is if we look at the story we're hearing right now, before we even get into the entrepreneur part, change its trajectory from Philadelphia, enters the military, the Army specifically, the 82nd, okay? We're talking about a division of the military. I think it's a division, right? Airborne Division.
Yeah, right.
And that has a history that is so thick. And the reason I remember it, because the number 33 is my favorite number. It's even tattooed on my back. It's my soccer number. Is 82nd, 33 days they fought in World War II with 24 hours, 7 days a week in a row.
Let me tell you, man.
And that kind of foundation to be able to have that legacy to then instill in someone like you and be a part of that in North Carolina. Let's talk a little bit about that too, because I think that that's really important. We're talking about a legacy that was built, that you got to enter, that in a way catapulted you, for lack of a better term.
Oh my goodness. It's taking me back, because I was in the 82nd Airborne. I was in the 327 Fires Battalion, right? And I remember that we was battalion that got our brigade got attached to the 82nd Airborne, right? So initially we wasn't in the 82nd, but by the time I got there we just got attached, right? So all of it was a field artillery battalion, and everybody else obviously was infantry, cav, scout, and all these other combat things. And we had to prove that we were good enough to be in the 82nd Airborne, right? So back then I was just I was younger then, but I was like, why do I have to prove? Why? I mean, and it wasn't just me; it was us as a company. Why do we have to prove that we're good enough? I think God is very strategic in where He places us, right? It doesn't matter where you're at on a totem pole, right? To God, everybody's equal. You get what I'm saying? But when you show up, make sure you show up, right? So it was one of those things when we will run down our dens, we would do our 8 miles, we would do our push-up, sit-ups. I was the guidon bearer, right? So I was in front of the company running with the flag, running with the guidon, right? And showing up and showing out and running past those other companies, screaming cadence to the top of my lungs so that people can know that we are a part of this 82nd Airborne and that regardless of what y'all feel, we're going to show up anyway, right? So that was one big lesson that I learned. But another lesson is that my leadership, they had been in the Army much longer than me at the time. They have taught me about just discipline, right? Because I was from Philly. I still had that hard head. You know, I wasn't really hip to the military lingo. You know, somebody told me to cover down. I'm like, I'm not covering down. Like the term is excuse me. And my sergeants really had to like instill in me, listen, Cooper, this is the military. You're not in the streets. That's military terminology. You have to figure it out, right? And I'm glad that they did that because it has cultivated me into the person that I am today, man. But the 82nd Airborne, being my first duty station, is something that I think everybody needs when they're about to emerge, right? And also when you don't know like where your life is going to go, because back then I didn't know that I was going to get on the Food Network and have these businesses. I didn't know that. But when you are in a situation that may seem a little bit harder than what you expect it to be, I think we should embrace that, right? We just should embrace it and just know that this is for my better good. And that's what the Army, that's what the 82nd Airborne did for me.
Yeah. And I love this because here's the thing that I'm going to tell everyone about those 33 days of fighting straight. Not only did they not give up a single bit of ground to the Germans during this time or the Axis powers, but they gained ground and didn't give up that ground in those 33 days. That's no sleep. That's sleeping between rounds. That's still being attacked night and day during this time. Cold weather doesn't matter. And so, go ahead.
I can't take nothing away from those guys, but listen, we have experience. I know what it feels like to have no sleep.
Exactly.
I know what it feels like to be in the field with the wet and the rain and the cold. It's like, I know what that feels like. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that all of that builds character, right? It builds character. I can never compare it to back when they was fighting in the wars. You know, I can't, right? But one of those things is that they paved the way for me. You know what I mean? And it's like they kind of left that energy there. And it's like, you're going to have to go through it regardless if you like it or not. Right? You're going to have to figure it out whether you like it or not. But it's not to hurt you, it's to actually help you. And that's just how I look at situations in life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it wasn't easy. It was not easy for me at all. My first sergeant sent me to armor school. He made me the armor of the unit. After he sent me to all these military schools, he made me the armor of the unit. I said, the only weapon I want to know about is the one that I have to carry, right? I'm not interested in these big machine guns and 240 Bravos and 249s, and I'm not in grenade launchers, and I'm not interested in that. And he sent me to this armor school. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
He sent you to uncomfortability.
Yeah, that's what he did. And then let me tell you something. When I passed. I got through it and I passed. It was hard, but I got through it and I passed. And it was just one of those things. I'm just like, when I think about it now, right? I have been through so many different things in my life that I would not have chose for myself. So God knows what he's doing with me. You know what I mean? And it's the small nuances, like those small things that we don't really pay attention to is what helps build you up. And that's like one of the main important things. I tell people all the time, they ask me, young guys, they ask me, so I want to get in the food industry. I want to do this. I want to do that. Young guys from Philly, I tell them, I said, listen, I will recommend you get out of this area, get out of this environment. Go and see something else. Break the culture of where you're from so you can kind of experience like just something else. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be hard for you to emerge into something else. And I'm not saying that is impossible. I'm just talking off of my experience. It's going to be hard for you to emerge into something else where you are around the same things over and over and over again. You know what I mean? The same situations with those limiting beliefs, right? I just put a video out about limiting beliefs. We got to cut that out. And sometimes you just got to step out of what you was brought into so you can get to the next level of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Let's talk about after you go out, you get out of school, you're working, you start building the catering. Let's talk about the ventures, building businesses, because that's different than the military. That's different than the discipline of school or the military. You're now having to create your own discipline in the world. Let's talk about that
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, that's the part right there, right? Because it's all fun and games when you're building a business and you're happy and you're excited. But when you go through those times when money is not coming in and when you go through hardships, that's when you really show up and show out. That's when who you really are is proven. So again, it was so amazing that when I first opened Succulent Imagination Catering, it was going great. The business was going great. I was getting customers, they were coming through. I got on the Food Network. Everything was going amazing, right? And I feel like I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like because typically that doesn't happen. Typically, when you first start a business, it start off very rough, right? And you got to keep pushing, you got to keep going until you actually get those leads and start making money. But for me, I feel like, and I always go back to God. God knew that if I was not successful in the beginning, that I probably wouldn't have kept going, right? So He made it successful for me in the beginning, and then in the middle, that's when I had to experience the hardship, right? So because I have already been through all those different hardships just in life and the military, he knew that I wasn't going to give up, right? So it was one of those things where I had to hold on
I needed to
through
hear
it.
that today. Thank you. And also, I needed to hear that today. Keep going.
Yeah, you got to keep going, man. You have to keep going. It's just one of those things where, listen, we're going to go through hardships. We're going to have trial and tribulations. We're going to be upset. We're going to be miserable. We're going to be mad. But just think about the times that you had when you were happy, right? Think about the times like when you were excited about building the business, but also remember that these hardships is to bless you. They're not to hurt you. They're not happening to you. They are happening for you. You know what I mean? And after you get over that hump, it's always greatness on the other side, right? It's always greatness on the other side. So yes, I had to experience not having any money, not having any customers, not and I had to get a job. I had to get a job. I became the executive chef at Discover Card Services, which was amazing because guess what? Even though I had to get a job, that taught me a different level of business. It taught me how to, like learn like more about food costs and learn more about labor and learn more about all these things that come along with the industry, right? And I had to get a job, which I'm so appreciative of it because when I got the job as the executive chef, Discover Card Services, they had a whole lot of catering, and that's what I was doing. I was doing catering, and I used to have to cater for like 15, 16, 1700 people at a time. So it broadened my portfolio, right? When we have little like little glitches in our life, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have that glitch forever, right? That glitch is for us to kind of like just like recalibrate, right? And that's what that job did for me. It helped me to recalibrate. So when I left, I already knew how to handle a catering company for a catering order for 1,200, 13, 1,400 people, right? So that's why I say look at situations like when we go through those hardships, look at it as a good thing. And then, I was able to transition out after a year of working as being an executive chef. And even after a year, they still wanted to keep me on. They said, hey, we do not want to let you go. Is it possible that when we have these big caterings and these big parties for the clients, that you can still come and assist, our new chefs that come in because you did so well. So that's another thing. Like affirmations from other people make you feel good as well, right? So I stayed with them for a while, and even after I left, I was still on their books, and I continued to do catering. And then guess what? We had another glitch in the system, COVID. You know,
Yeah.
so 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 COVID happened and I'm like, oh, here we go again. Is there? I don't have any. I don't have I don't have no money. I don't have anything coming in. But then I had to get another job as an executive chef at Paul's Run. So I became an executive chef at Paul's Run, and that was just amazing. And I was able to help people again, right? And this was an even bigger account, right? So because the account was bigger, I was in charge of more people. I had more people to feed. I had a bigger food cost. I had all of these different things. I learned so much being the executive chef there, and that account was so huge that you needed a sous chef. It wasn't like one of those accounts where you had a chef and a bunch of line cooks. It was you needed a chef, you needed a sous chef, you needed supervisors, you needed headline people. That's how big the account was. And for about the first 5 months there, I was there by myself doing it. I didn't have a sous. So I learned so much in that. But then even in the midst of COVID, I'm like, hold up. I'm losing suckling imagination. I'm not getting any leads for suckling imagination. So what can I do to keep suckling imagination on and running? I wrote a cookbook. It was like a guide, and it was called Simple Upscale Dining at Home. All of the restaurants were closed, and people were reaching out saying, like, I want to take my woman out. I want to have an upscale, dining experience, but we can't go to restaurants because they're closed. So I wrote a guide that was simple and easy, that had a few recipes in it, and it taught people how to bring the vibe to the environment, right? Listen, get some glasses, get some candles, get some nice candles, some china, some silverware, and if you can't afford like the expensive stuff, go to Dollar Tree and just get some wine glasses, some plates, and set your table, right? And here go the recipes, easy recipes, and you can have that restaurant quality experience in the comfort of your own home. Right? So situations in life give you the idea to move forward and to make things happen, you know? So you're going to go through roughness, man, but it's all great. It's all great. You said something earlier. You said sometimes it takes 7 years for something to grow out. You might be watering it. You might be planting it. You might be doing everything you need to do. But like the bamboo, it grows underground for what, 5, 6, 7 years before it starts popping out. And then when it pops out, it just keeps going.
I know,
it grows what?
70 feet.
12,
like
13, 14.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like crazy. 70 feet, I think, in like 7 days or some crazy amount, like 7 weeks or something. It's a ridiculous amount of time.
It's so ridiculous. And you know what's crazy? Even though I have done all of these shows, even though I have won three Food Network shows, been on 4 of them, the one that I lost taught me how to win the other ones. That was the second one I did. And I have a restaurant. I have a catering company. You know what? I still feel like I'm roots under the ground. I don't even feel like I sprouted yet.
Yeah, I know
I
that
feel like
feeling.
I'm on the verge. I feel like I'm on the verge of sprouting. You know what I mean?
I know.
So yeah, I think people just assume that we have so many different ups and downs in life that you have to embrace it all, man. You have to embrace it all. It's hard to do, but we have to embrace it all. And it's like I said, it's easier said than done. And I'm not acting like I have the answer to everything, but I know how to bring myself back to center. You know what I mean? I know how to bring myself back to center. And people say, so how do you bring yourself back to center? I always go to God with it, right? And people say, well, I pray, and it doesn't work. Well, I think you need to do more than pray, right? Get into that word, get into inspiration, get into the word of God. Call somebody who you can get some inspiration from, like surround yourself around great people who can like pour into you, right? But while you want to be poured into, ensure that you are pouring into others as well. Is this whole saying that you want to be a fountain and not a drain, right? You don't want anybody draining you. You want people pouring into you. So in turn, we have to pour into others, right? And everything that we have is great. It doesn't just people feel like, oh, I don't have enough. I can't give anybody anything. Yes, you do. Even a small word of encouragement can change somebody's whole day, you know? So it's okay if you see somebody walking and they might be looking mean and evil. Just smile at them. How you doing? How your day doing? That might change their whole day around. You know why? Because people probably never talk to them. You never know what nobody's going through. So
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
we should be a fountain in the life that we live.
Yeah, I think the random acts of kindness, the just trying to give to the world in that way, I think it is really important. And the faith thing, let's talk about, has it always been something in your life? Has it always grounded you? Let's talk about that a little bit. Where did the faith come from? Where did it strengthen? Has it always been strong?
No, man, it had not always been strong. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't grow up in church at all. I wasn't one of those guys who grew up in church and knew anything about, Jesus Christ or anything like that. That wasn't my story. I tell people all the time that God gripped me up by the collar and he dragged me to faith. And this was one of those things that kind of started with like with like inspirational music. Like it started with that. Like when you really just take yourself out of the beat and you listen to the words, that's how you kind of transition, right? And into allowing, like that's how I transition into allowing God to kind of help me out. And it was so crazy that when you listen to like inspirational contemporary gospel music or gospel music just in general, it's basically speaking the Bible, right? The words they're using is the words from the Bible, right? I didn't know that, right? So when I'm talking to people and I'm like being inspired by what I heard and giving them a little bit of what was instilled in me from the music, I did not even know that I was speaking the Bible, right? So it's just one of those things, man, where it just kind of happened, man, and I just love the way it made me feel, and I felt like when I'm gonna give this an example. So, Guys Chance of a Lifetime, we didn't talk about the last show that I was on, Guys Chance of a Lifetime, where I won the chicken guy, right?
Yep. Go on.
I was
Yeah.
I was casting for
There we
a
go.
Netflix show.
Yes. Awesome.
I was casting for a Netflix show, right? I was casting for a Netflix show. I wanted this show so bad. I wanted Netflix. I wanted this show so bad, right? The producer hit me up. She was like, "Listen, Kev, we think you'll be great. I worked with her before. We think you'll be great for the show. Sign up as Netflix." Netflix was like, everything is streaming now. Netflix is big. In my mind, I'm like, listen, if I get on Netflix, then I know that I can make it work. I know once I get on camera, I can potentially get a deal and all these other things, right? So Guy Sense of a Lifetime came across my email. And I'm like, okay, obviously I know who Guy Fieri is, but I did not know exactly what Chicken Guy was. It was a relatively newer restaurant that they opened and it was in Disney Springs. And it just basically said, are you a natural born leader? Do you have great leadership qualities? Are you in the food industry in some way or another or something like that? So I decided to click on it and I decided to sign up. So the producers called me. They kind of gave me a brief synopsis of what it was, and I filled out the rest of the information. And then before you knew it, they were like, "Okay, Kevin, you made it, right?" But I was not. I was like 75% complete with the Netflix casting process, right? And you cannot cast for two different shows at the same time. You have to either pick one or the other. So when they called me and was like, "Hey, you made it. This is the details. Call us back to let us know if you want to continue to move forward with it." I was struggling with that, right? Because I was holding on to Netflix with my dear life. I was holding on to Netflix with my dear life. I wanted to be on Netflix so, so bad, but I felt like it was a hook on my collar that
Yeah.
was me towards Guys Chance of a Lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing for Netflix, but the hook on my collar I was being fished, right? And I'm just like, okay, now I know I've been through a lot of lessons, right? I have done a lot of things that I knew I was not supposed to do. So I know this.
Yes. I know exactly what you're going through in this moment.
Yeah, yeah. So I know this feeling. I know what this feels like, right? So I decided to call the producers, let them know, hey, I got another opportunity. Sorry guys, I was very excited about this opportunity, but now, I got an opportunity with Guy Fieri, and I'm going to go with that opportunity. So then I ended up going, flying into Orlando, and doing the series Guys of a Lifetime, and I end up winning the show, and I won a restaurant.
Okay. I mean, it's just kind of a crazy thing. And I was to the one in Disney Springs, and I've been to the other ones that he's had here and there. I think it's incredible. And then you win one. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
here's the work ethic, the hard work, the letting God steer the path.
yeah.
Here we are. Talk to me about being a franchisee. What is that like? What is this experience like? Because there's discipline and obedience and SOPs coming at you. So it's a little bit similar, right, to your background?
Yeah, brick and mortar is not easy at all. It's been great, but it's been hard. It's been rough, right? It's especially in King of Prussia, like having your own brick and mortar is and dealing with people. Like when we first opened, I think I had 30 employees when we first opened. Now I think I got about like 8 of them. And it's crazy that all of those people, and I'm in the midst of hiring like maybe one or two more. Well, my GM, she's hiring one or two more. And the thing is like you think you need all these people around you. You know, sometimes the best work can get done with a small amount of people, right? You have to be, cognizant of who you have around you. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where I learned so much within this first year of being a franchisee, right? I'm thinking that this thing, oh, I want a franchise. It took a while, for us to open up. Obviously, we had to, go through some processes and things of that nature. But when I opened up, I'm looking at this like this is going to be a doozy. I want this restaurant. We're going to open and we're going to keep it moving. No, I actually had to go through the phases of being restaurateur, like having my own location, right? Dealing with things that might happen as far as breaks and bills and ups and downs and, trying to figure out labor and within this capacity. You know what I mean? Like it has been a learning lesson, right? But here's the thing. As great as it has been and as rough as it has been, I would not change it for the world. Because the reason why I got pulled, like feel like I was being fished to this opportunity, was for a reason. You know what I mean? And I'm just waiting and I'm anticipating what that reason is. You know what I mean? You gotta anticipate the things that haven't even happened yet. I think we be so stuck in what's in front of us that we're not anticipating the greatness that's ahead of us. You know what I mean? And I think like sometimes we take advantage of life because some you might not even wake up tomorrow. You know what I mean? So be
Exactly.
excited about that. Be excited if you have that opportunity to wake up tomorrow and you never know what's going to be presented in front of you. Like my goals, obviously, is to do TV, is to do radio, is to be on the face, whatever televised TV radio station I can get on. But it's not for my glory. It's to show people again that you can overcome whatever obstacles you need. It's for inspiration, man. It's for inspiration. So yes, it's been great, but it's also had its rough patches as well.
I mean, you're also building a market because, I mean, it's a fairly new concept. And
Yeah,
so it's establishing the brand also and assisting as a newer franchisee in the building of that brand, particularly probably in the Philadelphia area. I'm not sure. But you're also trying to establish a brand, and there are competitors out there in the same space. So
absolutely. We're right next to Chick-fil-A.
there, yes.
Right.
I
We're
mean,
right. Lord have mercy. We're right next to Chick-fil-A. I was so excited about being next to Chick-fil-A at first. I was very excited. I'm like, why not be next to the biggest chicken brand in the world? Why not? It's going to teach me a lot of different things, right? Now I know I probably wouldn't do it again, but like I said, all those things build character. And one thing about Chicken Guy, I stand 10 toes on Chicken Guy, right? Chicken Guy is people may call it fast food. Some people may even call it fast casual, right? But here's the thing. We are a chef-driven brand. We make all of our sauces from scratch. We do hand-spun milkshakes. We bread our chicken is fresh, not frozen. Like we do everything from the muscle. So a lot of people, they ask me, okay, my catering company, I kind of like to do things a little bit more upscale, right? And also just take like humble ingredients and kind of elevate them. But when people ask me, so why do you want to? Why you happy with this? Yes, I am happy with this because it's deeper than a food. Even though we are chef driven, right? You have to understand how to read a recipe to make this work. You have to have some kind of culinary knowledge to make this work. But on top of that, it is also teaching me the elements of being a brick and mortar owner, which is different than being a off-premise caterer. You have to make sure that you're accounting every dollar. You have to make sure that your team understands labor, that they understand food costs, that they understand like bills and everything else. It's so much small things that the people don't see. And it's not even small, it's really big. It's so much big behind the scene things that people don't see that you have to make sure that you handle or your restaurant will fail. You know what I mean? And we've been open almost a year. And I think that's a really amazing milestone. It's a really amazing milestone considering the things that people don't see, right? So I take my hat off to just everybody in the restaurant world, specifically restaurateurs and owners who has to go through the trial and tribulations of being a restaurateur, and even the general managers and the chefs, right? And it's something obviously wrong with us because we come back to do it again.
Yeah, no kidding, right? We go right back in for the punishment.
we, we come back to do it again. So, I take my hat off to them guys, man, to everybody in this industry. And I tell people all the time, with me being in the military and being a veteran, this is almost as hard as being a veteran. So the food industry is not to be played with. The food industry is a different kind of a soldier, the ones that's in it. We are a different kind of a soldier. And let me tell you something, we are strong individuals and we make things happen.
That's true. And we have a lot of impact and influence over a lot of people, probably more than anywhere else. We
Absolutely.
touch more customers, more vendors, more employees than anyone else.
Right.
This is one of my last questions. Employees, let's talk about the leadership skills, discipline, instilling that into what I would we'll call it a civilian in this case. But it's a little bit different. So the franchise requires it. You have to operate by these standards. That's why a franchise model exists. It's a food system laid out to make it easier for the business owners as a franchisee. And then it builds a brand better. So let's talk about that, the employees, but let's also talk about in general, team members, people part of your team, your vendors, your suppliers. You're talking about a little bit upscale. We're talking about a chef-driven brand. So there's a lot of different avenues. We're talking about wine also. In all of these avenues, I mean, let's focus on the team members, but let's also talk about the relationships and building those relationships and the importance of that to you amongst all of it.
Yeah, so I think initially, like, I stand by my Army values, which is loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, integrity, and personal courage, right? I stand by them, right? They will always be with me, right? And one of the biggest ones that sticks out to me is integrity, and that selfless service, right? I think they're like my top two, right? Because selfless service means that you're not selfish and that you're open to providing service to other people in a way that is great, that is amazing, that make people feel wanted. And integrity is just, that you're going to do the right thing at all times. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I can go to my restaurant. I'm going to, like, when we first opened, I was there every single day, right? Leading and motivating and guiding and teaching and instilling and all these different things. And now, like, I'm gonna go into my restaurant when we're finished our meeting, and I see me in there, right? I see me in there, right? I know that that chicken is still going to be good. I know that those sauces are going to be amazing. I know that everything in that walk-in is going to be labeled and dated, and everything is going to be dressed right, dressed and where it needs to be, and the customer service is going to be impeccable, right? But the leader have to be the one to instill that into their team, right? You have to guide them. You have to guide them. You know what I mean? And the thing is, people say you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. But if they saw you drinking the water, they will drink it, right? So you have to change your mindset around the way that you think. I think great leadership is everything, right? My team, even my GM, she's older than me, right? She still follows my lead, right? She don't worry because I don't worry. She guides and she leads because I guide and I lead. You know what I mean? It's the same thing for my team leads and for the employer and for the team members as well. When they're always enthusiastic about work. They always want to come when right now we're in a slow time. They still want to come to work. Well, if you need me, call me. I'll come in. I'll do whatever. Just, you know what I mean? When people want to work for you and you know that it's deeper than just getting a paycheck, you know that you did something amazing. You know that you did something amazing. And it's just one of those things where you have to know where to cut that cancer out, right? Because the food industry is very high turnover, right? It is. But you have to know where to cut that cancer out so that it will not spread, right? and it's like genuinely, I'm just a loving person. I'm like, I'll give people chance after chance after chance after chance. But it becomes a time when you can't give nobody chances because you don't want to compromise the integrity of your brand, right? And you just have to let those people go. But now you got a good, solid team that when you bring people on, then all that greatness is going to transition onto them.
I love it. I agree 100%. Building different businesses, wine, like how do you get into that? Let's talk about, so you're starting to diversify yourself now, multiple businesses. You're obviously, you know how to work the TV part, the entertainment, what I would call the show business part of being a growing entrepreneur in this world. It's almost a requirement, even in food, especially for your businesses, to be able to be somewhat of that presence and lead in that way. And like I said, not to mention the impact and influence. So let's talk a little bit about the wine, like how'd you get into that? Why that? And then let's sort of also talk about managing the diverse businesses and the balance to find exercise and time and all of that. And then I'm going to anchor all of that sort of into why back to Philadelphia when you started again, because we didn't really cover that. You ended up back in Philadelphia. So I think all of it's relevant.
Oh,
Sorry,
so why I
multiple
ended up
question.
back?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and it was fun. Why I ended up back in Philly, I was in Seattle, Washington, or Tacoma, Washington, where I was stationed in JBLM. That was my last active duty station, and I met my wife there. And and it's so crazy. When I was telling her, I said, I really, really want to, like, I'm contemplating getting out of the military and doing this food service thing. Remember, I was saying that I had a job at a steakhouse when I was active duty, and I had to get
Yeah.
permission from my commander
Yeah.
to actually work at the job. And I was also doing pop-ups, for certain individuals on my time off, right? So the reason why I came back to Philly is because my daughter was here, right? My daughter at the time, I think she was 4 years old. And all the first 4 years of her life, I was in the military. So it was just really one of those things where I just said, I need to get back home to my daughter. I promise you, if I didn't have a daughter or if my daughter was with me, I don't believe I would have came back to Philadelphia. But that was my choice, right? That would have been my choice. That wasn't the choice that God had for me, right? So we ended up coming back to Philadelphia. That's what I did. I came back to Philly, start cultivating, even though obviously my daughter knew who I was. I was in the Army, but, I started cultivating that relationship with her. She now lives with me. She's 15 years old, be 15 March 1st, right?
There you go.
And it's just one of those things where, my responsibility was here, right? I got everything that I needed to actually make me a better man at that time. And now it's time for me to just that selfless service thing again, right? Go home and get your child, right? And it's unfortunate. Listen, there are a lot of soldiers out there that can't be with their kids. They could be overseas, they could be wherever, right? But I think 4 years was enough for me. It was enough for me. So I said I can be a father, I can be a soldier, and I could be a chef all at the same time, and a husband. So, and that's what I did. And that's what I'm still doing. And I'm still striving to become a better father, a better husband, a better chef, a better leader, a better man, you know? And not just for me, but just for society, man. I think when we focus on being great, how much it kind of spills onto society. You know what I'm saying? And you should want people to be inspired by you from the great things that you bring to the table. And that's one of my goals, bro.
Yeah, no one can believe it's possible unless we prove it's possible. And we have to prove it's possible, and then greater things can be proven possible. I mean, you look at the evolution of any sport, and that is exactly what happens there. Is greatness is trumped by greatness, which is trumped by greatness.
Right,
So,
right, right.
last question. If you could tell anything to the audience, the mic's yours, anything to the audience, anything that you wish you knew sometime in the past that you know now, anything like that, life lessons, mentors, anything that we didn't cover that you want to cover, I want to make sure I give you the time to do that. And so it's yours. Anything like that would be awesome.
Yeah, so this is one of the things, one of the models that I live by, and I believe that I made this up myself, but it always sticks with me. It's one of those things that when the sun is shining on you, do not look for the shade, right? And I say that to say, because sometimes the sun can be very, very hot, right? But you stick through it, you push through it, and you be the best person you possibly can be, right? And you help that sun shine on the lives of other people. And I think that's a mouthful. It's very short, but it's a mouthful, you know. So don't go looking for that shade, man. Allow your life to shine bright, shine bright, and be a good person. I say that all the time too. Be a good person. When you do good, you get good. You reap what you sow.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Where can they find you online? Where can they find your businesses? All of that great stuff.
Okay, so you guys, you can come and check me out at Chicken Guy, King of Prussia Mall. We are at 160 North Golf Road, King of Prussia, PA, 19406. You can also check me out on Instagram at Chef Steak. That's ChefSteek on Instagram. You can check me out at Chef Steak on Facebook as well. You can also check me out on succulentimagination.com. That's SUCCULENT imagination.com if you want to inquire about any catering services or personal chef services as well. So listen, we here to serve you guys. And if you can't make it to the mall, Chicken Guy is on Uber Eats and DoorDash, right? So if you want to taste that delicious chicken, make sure you get us on DoorDash or Uber Eats.
Yeah, I do. I will say this. There is a significant difference between taking what's commercially available and turning it into a franchise and actually having chef-driven recipes that are made from scratch. So
it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy, man.
No, it's
but
not
we do
easy.
It. We're doing it. We're doing it.
I know you guys are doing it. There is a very big difference. For anyone in the audience that's listening that might not be in food service, the difference between ordering everything off of a checklist from a Cisco US Foods and it's already made and dropping it into a fryer or making it into something is a lot different than making things and sauces from scratch. And the sauces and the chicken, I will say, it's outstanding. There was a point where I will admit that it was like I was late night recording for the podcast in 2023 and I would eat either Chicken Guy or Taco Bell on the way home like once or twice a week. So it was because they were open and that's what I needed on the way home while I was recording late night because I used to record in the evenings and nighttime. So yeah, I know. I really enjoyed it actually. So
we do it from the muscle. We do it from the muscle. Listen, you go be in the back of my kitchen, that burn mixer going to be gone because we are actually blending our own sauces. All of that deliciousness is made hand to customer. You know what I mean? So listen, come and check us out.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everyone for listening. And if you guys like the episode, please share it. Word of mouth is a big deal still in today's world. So our entrepreneurs out there, or you're in the Philadelphia area, like, share, visit the area, visit the mall. If you're there, get some chicken, Chicken Guy's worth it, really. And the other part is catering or just following Kevin Cooper. It's worth it because what he's doing for the industry, the skills that he's stacking, the restaurant experience, the things that God has provided him with along his journey, it matters. Individuals like this do great things. And the sprout, as he said, his bamboo's just about to grow out of the ground. So we need to pay attention. If you're entrepreneurs out there or you're wanting your businesses to do better, understand the stacking of skills that needs to take place in the education. And there is faith and spirituality that will lead you in the right direction. And sometimes it looks like loss. Even for a while, it may look like loss that you gave up something and there's regret, but stay steadfast.
There you go.
In your pursuit, and there will be abundance.
There you go.
And so I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the support. Like I said, like, share, comment if you like the episode. Any entrepreneurs out there that you think might need to hear what's going on the show or in these episodes, please share that with them. And then for community, all of that stuff, continue to look at Gorilla Brave. I'm trying to give you guys what you asked for: specific food and beverage, farming, hospitality, nutrition, that area, entrepreneur space, spirituality, core values, all the core basics so you can reinforce it with your staff. All the things that you guys are asking for is all on there. So I will continue to listen to you guys. It's not the direction I ultimately was thinking the podcast would go, as being this huge educational resource, but through a lot of silence, 4 or 5 years in and 7 months of just living in a silent period and listening to God, this is what came out of it, which meant also listening to everyone out there. So I hear you guys with the overwhelming loudness of the information's out there. It's translated out of the episodes. All the episodes have show notes. All the episodes have transcripts, and all the episodes have timestamps with the notes of the episodes, so you can find stuff, quick search it, download it, put it into your AI and extract any information you want out of. I've done it all for you guys. So it's all there. And these entrepreneurs are coming on here to share that information and help in your journey. Why? Because they understand legacy. They understand making the world better than we found it. And they understand we have to raise the water for all the ships to get higher, so you guys can raise the water even higher than we did. The point is to outgrow us as a generation, or whatever generation is on the show. That's the goal here. In our restaurants, in our businesses, the only way they survive is if we cultivate growth, such strong cultivated growth that we want the individuals in our organization to outlead us, outgrow us, outthink us, outcreate us, outdo whatever. That's what we're priming them for, to be great humans. So I'll leave it with that. I think this episode is one of my favorites right now, just from that standpoint. I appreciate that, Kevin. I appreciate reminding me of the pulling of the collar. And I appreciate the reminder that sometimes if there was an initial success, we wouldn't have been able to grind it out in the middle. There's just some of us that need that, and some of us that are already strong enough that we're like, okay, why now? Why do you have to grind it out now? But He knows we can do it. And we've never been prepared for anything that we aren't prepared for in that moment. So we are constantly being prepared. So in this moment, whatever's happening to us, we have been prepared for it. And whatever is coming, we are being prepared for also, if we seek it, if we're open to it. And this is my last point for everyone. I'm going to emphasize what Kevin said. Overall, God created a tree. It is still our will to turn it into furniture. Okay, or turn it into something. We still have the ability we still have to take things that are given to us, opportunities that are given to us, and things that are given to us, and do something with them. Make it greater. Make it of value. Help humans with it. And furniture, think about it if we didn't have chairs to sit in all the time. So that's just a thought, guys. It's just a thing, the concrete thing. It's not all like given. What we're given, we still have to do something with. So thank you everyone for listening in. I love you guys, and we're out.